Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the fourth webinar series of 6. And this is an educational webinar, and today's topic is on pavement management. We'll be discussing a 3-point strategy to best manage your pavement assets. So a few housekeeping items that we'd like to cover today before we jump in. First one is there is a PDH certificate available. So there's one PDH credit available for today's webinar, and you can download that certificate right from the GoToWebinar session today. If you see that piece of paper in your toolbox or panel there, that's what you'll want to access. We do have a series of 3 different poll questions today, so we hope that you will participate in those poll questions. And throughout the seminar, webinar, if you have any questions at all, we do encourage you to submit those questions via the question mark symbol in your panel. And we do have an associate that will be tracking those questions, and we will run through a question and answer session at the end. And lastly, we are planning to record today's webinar, so an email will be sent to you with a link to the recording that you can rewatch any parts of the webinar that you may want to, or share with anybody on your team. So just a little bit about our presenters today. I am Elise Schmidt. I have been with Benchmark for 16 years, and I am the general manager of our pavement division. Troy Kaiser is one of our presenters today, and he has been in the industry for 35 years. He's also been with Benchmark for about 16 years and is a senior consultant.
Morning.
And then we also have Ben Fiedler, and he has been with Benchmark for 5 years. And Ben is a staff consultant, a staff roofing consultant, and he also is part of our IT team. And so Ben is handling all of the technical questions, and he is taking care of everything behind the scenes for us today. So who is Benchmark? Benchmark is a roof and pavement consulting firm, and we provide consulting services across North America that all with the objective of reducing risk, prioritizing budget, and maximizing the service life of roof and pavements. So we just wanted to share with you a few statistics about Benchmark. We were established in 1983. We are independently and private owned. We specialize in services that include evaluation, design bid, construction phase services, and also program management. We have 2 main offices, one located in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is our headquarters, and then we have one in Waukesha, Wisconsin, which is outside of Milwaukee. That is our pavement division headquarters, and where both Troy and I typically reside. We do have 21 satellite locations throughout the United States, and we also currently have 115 team members. So the map you see on the screen here, this just highlights our projects over the last few years. Yellow is roofing and green is paving. So as you can see, we work coast to coast and all throughout the United States. So we do have 2 more webinars in this 6 webinar series that we're doing. The next webinar is a week from today at 11 o'clock. Thursday, May 14th, and the topic is on roof design. We'll be discussing the critical steps to long-term roof performance. And the final webinar of this series, it will be on May 21st, and that topic is pavement rehabilitation design goals, where we'll be sharing with you ways to extend the asset life and reduce risk of total reconstruction. And during that webinar on the 21st, we will be sharing a few project case studies with you as well. So we look forward to doing that. So the overview for today. So today, Troy and I are going to share with you the 3-point strategy that we feel like you could follow to best manage your pavement assets. And why is this important today? Well, in light of COVID-19, we're seeing budgets frozen, we're seeing less money available for projects. And so now more than ever, it's important that you are effectively as possible managing and maximizing your allocated budget. So we hope that you find the tips we share with you today helpful. So the first step in the 3 points is evaluation. And so really, when it comes to the evaluation, it is knowing what you have and what it needs. And in some cases, we actually find that your pavement or your roof is valued at more than what you think. So we are going to start off with our first poll question today. And Ben will be leading the poll question, but just to give you a heads up, the question is, what is the average asset value of an asphalt parking lot per square yard?
As Elise mentioned, we are looking to see what your thoughts are on the average asset value of asphalt. And we have 4 options, $35 a square yard, $45 a square yard, $55, and $65 a square yard. And as we wait for for everybody to have a chance to respond, I thought I'd take this opportunity and ask Troy, with your history as a contractor, how has that shaped your perspective as a consultant, or given you more insight into the construction aspect of benchmark services?
Well, I think I'd have to say, Ben, that from a design standpoint, it allows, when we're putting together designs for rebuilding parking lots, I've got the background to know what the contractors can do in certain size areas. Some methods of construction won't work well in smaller areas. That's a big benefit, knowing what the contractors can and can't do as far as equipment. When it comes to construction observation or inspection, it seems like once they know that I've been in the industry, I get a lot more respect. They listen to what I have to say, and I have kind of a BS detector when it comes to contractors. I know when they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes. I've had contractors tell me, well, we can't do it that way. And I'll go, well, I've done it that way and it works just fine. So definitely having a construction background has been a big asset in becoming a consultant.
Thanks, Troy. We have a few more votes coming in, and so I'm going to go ahead and close that now. And the results, 9% voted that they think it's $35 a square yard, 36% voted that they think it's $45 a square yard, 45% voted $55 a square yard, and 9% voted $65 a square yard.
All right, thank you, Ben. So the average asset value for an asphalt parking lot is $45 a square yard, and we will preface this with saying this is a very rough estimate. It can change based on geographic. And then we also wanted to include in here, while we didn't have a question for you to answer, the average asset value for a concrete trucking area is approximately $110 a square yard. So why do we share this with you? Well, we share this with you today just to give you an easy way to quickly determine what your asset value may be. So with a typical car stall, it'd be between $1,500 and $2,000 per car stall. And with a trailer stall, we'd be looking at about $5,000 to $6,000. So let's say you have a 500 car stall asphalt parking lot. Your asset value for that lot would be between $750,000 and $1 million. And if we were to relate that to a trailer stall, if you had 300 trailer stalls, the asset value would be approximately $1.5 million to $1.8 million. So those are definitely high asset values and something that you want to preserve and take care of. So when it comes to the evaluation, the very first thing that we would recommend you do is walk the site. And so, as Troy likes to say, boots on the ground. So making sure that somebody is physically walking your site and observing all of the different conditions that may be out there, really taking a fresh set of eyes and looking at each individual section, each individual area, and just getting a general overview of what those conditions are. So then during that evaluation process, we would recommend that you document your findings. So things you may want to document would be your areas of repair, areas that need maintenance, maybe an area that needs an overlay. You may also want to document your photo locations. It's always important that when you're out walking the site that you're also taking photos. And you may want to take photos of just general areas of general conditions, and then you might also want to take photos of specific deteriorated areas. And you'll see here the example on the plan, we do show the little photo bubble listed so that we could then reference the photo at a later date. So that may be something. And you would also want to document any safety issues that you may find as well. So during the evaluation process, you've walked the site, evaluated things, and then you also want to measure the areas. So when we say measure the areas, we mean the areas of repair, but also making sure that you have correct measurements for your site. And why is it important to have measurements? Well, it's important to have measurements because if you were to give this plan that you're putting together to a contractor to price for you, you would want to make sure that their proposal, when they get it back, that you can cross-reference it and that it does tie off to the dimensions and the areas that you have identified that need repair during your evaluation process. So the next piece of the evaluation would be to prioritize your needs. And we have here on the screen for you a demonstration or sample site. And you'll see here in this particular case for this sample, we've used a color coding system. And so the budget starts in 2020, and there is a different color associated with each year. And so this, for the demonstration, it just shows you a nice overview of the upcoming work at this particular site, anything from immediate repairs or work that may need to be done, and also includes the areas that are in really good condition and may not require any major work for 11+ years. This particular demonstration plan shows a very balanced approach. So potentially for a client that may have a certain set amount of money to spend each year, and then how would you best allocate those based on the, how would you best prioritize those and allocate your funds based on the needs of the facility?
At least also, these are really good documents to have when you're going for funding. If you have to go up the corporate ladder, if you have actual data to back up what you're requesting, it'll make it a lot easier for you to secure funds for your projects.
Absolutely, great point, Troy. And it is showing not just a single year that you're planning to request money this year, but that you do have a long-term plan in place for maintaining your pavement asset. So another piece of the evaluation is planning. So once you've walked your site, documented your conditions, measured your site, and put together the priority plan, the next thing you need to do is determine the course of action that's needed in each individual section. So you may have thousands and thousands of square yards of pavement at your site, and not everything is in the same condition. And so you need to assess each of those conditions to determine if maintenance work might need to be done, or maybe rehabilitation work may need to be done. So I'm going to share with you here, this is a picture of a typical deterioration curve, and so with no maintenance being done. And the reason that we share this is we do have a poll question coming up, and just want to get you familiar with the different conditions. So you'll see here we have excellent condition at the top, and you'll see that that pavement is in very good shape. You really don't see any defects. The next category would be good. You'll see that you're starting to get some minor cracking, but the surface is still in really good condition. The next category is fair. You're seeing significantly more cracking, potholes starting to develop, and the pavement is really starting to get to the point that you're kind of questioning, what is that next step? How do I maintain this pavement? And then the final category is poor. And you'll see in that picture, we have quite a bit of alligator cracking. It is definitely past the point of any type of maintenance being done, and there could even be some safety issues there. So we're going to have another poll question here, and I will hand this over to Ben for poll question number 2.
Thanks, Elise. Poll question number 2 is, which of your pavements should you spend your money on first? Excellent pavements, good pavements, fair pavements, or poor pavements? And while we give people time to respond, Elise, you know, I absolutely love your dog, Rue, and just wanted to get an update to see how he's doing.
Oh my goodness, Rue, well, she is mischievous. She is my 1-year-old mini golden doodle, and absolutely adore her. Funny story, Ben, actually yesterday morning I was working out and she was being pretty quiet, and I thought, I got done working out and I thought, I'm gonna go check on the dog. Well, she clearly is not understanding the shortage of toilet paper, because in the living room, she had an entire roll of toilet paper and had destroyed the entire thing. So I think we need to talk to her a little bit about the shortage of toilet paper, because we can't afford to have her continue to do that. But she's definitely mischievous, but super cute. She keeps us on our toes.
That is good to hear. And we added a photo here in a second, so we'll be able to share a photo, and so everybody can see how adorable Rue is. And it looks like our answers are all coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And here are the results. 6% said you should spend money on your excellent pavement first. 31% said spend money on good pavements first. 25% said fair. 38% said on your poor pavements first.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben, for that. And we will cover what our recommendations would be. So this is a picture of Rue that Ben included in the presentation, and you can see she's very cute, but she's also very mischievous for a 1-year-old puppy. So, all right. So during the planning phase, you actually should spend money on your good pavements first. And you guys are probably wondering, why would they say you should spend money on your good pavements first? Well, we do have good reasoning for that. So studies actually show that in the long run, doing maintenance will in fact improve the overall pavement asset and life expectancy of your pavement. So when we talk about maintenance, maintenance could be things like crack sealing, could be curb and gutter repair, potentially patching, other miscellaneous things. But it's very critical that in the pavements that fall within that good condition, that you are doing the necessary maintenance needed to preserve the condition of those pavements. And you'll see here in the photo on the left, there is some pretty wide cracking taking place. And then the photo on the right shows a pavement that has been recently crack sealed. And so in preparing for this presentation today, Troy and I thought, we could probably do an entire presentation or webinar on crack sealing and kind of the do's and don'ts. So we won't get into all of that today, but we really do want to share with you that crack sealing can be very cost effective if it's done correctly. And so when we say correctly, we want to make sure that if you are having a contractor come out to do the crack sealing, that they're one, not crack filling, but actually sealing the cracks, and two, that they're routing the cracks before they seal them. So certainly if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But crack sealing is probably the most cost effective maintenance item to preserve the asset of your pavement.
Yeah, Lisa, it's very important to keep water from getting into your pavement system. Water is the #1 cause of pavement premature failure.
Absolutely, great point, Troy. So the next category where you should spend your pavements, or your next priority, should be your fair pavement. So we have a couple of photos here we wanted to share with you. So the photo on the left, you'll see there's some settling around the light pole base. You'll see some cracking, but the pavement's it's in fair condition. So this pavement is actually ready for a structural overlay. And same thing with the pavement on the right. While in different conditions, we've got extreme raveling. We also have some cracking taking place, but this pavement is also in fair condition, and we would recommend a structural overlay to extend the life of the pavement system. So the first place you should spend your money is on your good pavements, followed by your fair pavements. And then it would be your worst condition pavements, should be your lowest priority. And obviously this isn't an ideal situation. One of the reasons that we share that your worst pavements should be your lowest priority, and we preface that with saying, if you're not having any safety issues and if it's not impacting the overall, the overall traffic at your facility or operations to your facility. So reconstructions can cost 3 to 5 times the cost of an overlay. So what you really want to do is identify pavements when they're in that fair condition and perform that structural overlay before they get to the point where they are in poor condition and require reconstruction. So you're definitely going to save money in the long run if you can take care of those pavements before they hit the poor condition.
Yeah, and Lisa, the cost of a reconstruction is not going to change much from this year to next year or even 2 years. So delaying these projects is not going to impact the cost to reconstruct them. Obviously, you want to do pothole patching, keep it safe, make sure nobody's going to trip on anything. But it doesn't hurt financially to delay the reconstruction of these pavements.
Absolutely. So we just wanted to share with you, this is actually a new tool that we've recently developed, and what it does is it shows you the difference of a reactive approach versus a proactive approach. So for this particular example today, the asset value of the customer's pavement is estimated at $13 million. And in the top image, you'll see if the customer does no maintenance, doesn't do any overlays, but basically just lets the pavement deteriorate, starting in excellent condition, getting down to that fair and poor condition, over a 12-year period, they would spend roughly $13 million, which comes out to about 1.1 million, just under $1.1 million a year over the life of the pavement. And the pavement would last approximately 12 years. So in the image on the bottom, you'll see we have the same $13 million asset value. And in this particular case, this one is following kind of the ideal situation that we just shared with you in the slides before. So you'll see right around year 5, it says maintenance, there's a little circle with a check mark. So at that point in time, between years 3 and 5, maintenance is being done. The pavement is right about that very good. It increases a little bit. And then 5 years later, it's around the good condition. You do some additional maintenance. That touch may be more patching and crack sealing. And then your pavement condition increases just a little bit. And then around year 15, you're to the point where it's in fair condition and an overlay can be done. So if you do that overlay in the right time, the condition of your pavement is going to improve, maybe not back to excellent, but right around that very good. And then over the next basically 10 years, you would continue to do maintenance touches every 5 years. So in this example, the client would be getting a life expectancy of 28 years, and they would be spending $11.6 million. So that's an average about $416 per year to manage the pavement. So not only are in the proactive approach with this particular example, they would be getting 16 years longer life expectancy out of their pavement, and they would be spending $1.4 million less over the 28 years. So definitely some interesting stats here with the deterioration curve. Timing is everything, and that's really what we wanted to stress to you today in step 1 of the evaluation. As I mentioned, this is a new tool that that Benchmark has recently created, and so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, now you've done the first strategy, you know what you have a plan. So the second strategy for properly managing your pavements is have a proper design. If we're going to spend money, we want to make sure we spend it correctly. So how do we go about getting a proper design? Well, the first thing you should do is find, if you can, the original construction documents or any documents from any repaving or overlay to help gather information on what's there, and any existing information is going to be very helpful in the design phase. The next thing you should do is do geotechnical exploration, punch some holes in that pavement, do borings. What the borings will show you is the thickness of the asphalt, the thickness of the existing stone base, the makeup of the subgrade, what type it is, and it'll also show us the moisture content, any moisture that's present, because the last thing we want to do is start excavating that pavement and end up with a subgrade that looks like the picture below on the left, that because an asphalt or concrete pavements are only as good as what we build them on. So base is critical. And if we don't know what that base is when we're doing our design, we cannot do a proper design. Next thing is to shoot grades. We want to make sure if we're going to redo a parking lot, we want to make sure we get the grades right and correct any problems, any elevation issues that are causing water to pool on our asphalt or concrete. So you want to make sure that your grades are taken when you're putting together your design. Okay, that will take care of your surface drainage, but now we also want to think about subsurface drainage. And this is a really good time to check out your existing storm sewers, catch basins, look down in those, make sure that they're in good condition. If they need to be reconstructed, they should be reconstructed before that new pavement is placed. As you can see here, this is a still shot from a video that was done of a storm sewer. You can see the concrete is failing. You want to repair that before you repave the parking lot, not afterwards when you have to have a big patch in your parking lot. So this is a good thing you need to do before reconstructing a parking lot. The next part of proper design is traffic usage. It has to be designed for the type of traffic you're going to use on your parking lot. There's a big difference between a trailer parking area, a car parking area, or bus routes around a shopping mall, ring road. We have to make sure that we take into account the traffic that's going to be on that new pavement.
And Troy, when we talk about traffic usage, it's always interesting to me to hear some of the things that you see out in the field. And maybe you could share a little bit about the garbage trucks and the routes that they may take and the impact on the pavement.
Yeah, garbage trucks are a big issue. They're generally some of the heaviest loads we have on our pavements. And most businesses and companies keep their garbage dumpsters way in the back, hidden, which makes sense. But then that garbage truck has to drive through your site to get to the back. So they're traveling over a good percentage of your pavement. And if you're their last pickup before they head off to the dump, that truck's going to be pretty heavy. So we want to make sure those routes are designed to support those garbage trucks, and also the pad or that area in front of the dumpster, we want to make sure that that's constructed so that when they lift the dumpster and that extra weight is bouncing on the front of that truck, that pavement's going to hold up as well. So when we're doing our design, it's kind of like an algebraic equation. The design has to be greater than the deficiencies in the subgrade and the amount of traffic that pavement's going to carry. The next point I wanted to make on design is, although it's okay to have a master specification that your company uses, make sure that each design for each specific area is site specific. We don't want a cookie cutter design that we use everywhere in every parking lot or every trucking area, because each one, because of all those items I've already discussed, it needs to be specific to that particular area of pavement. Here's some examples of site-specific plans. On the left, this detail it shows everything the contractor needs to know when he builds. This is a stone curb detail. There's no question this is what he needs to do when he bids it. The example on the right shows the lost my train of thought there. On the right shows the work order that's going to be done. It's an oversight. You can see that it's color coded. The contractor can look and see that in the blue area he's doing these specific items. There's work codes for each, for example, catch basin adjustments, curb and gutter. So there's nothing left to chance when the contractors are looking at these plans and specs. The other thing you should include when you do your design is you should include contingencies for unforeseen items. This is probably the biggest thing that causes issues on projects are soft areas, buried items that we couldn't see. So you want to try to build these items into your bidding documents. One example here on the left, you can see there's a soft area. This is unfortunately right in front of the paver, but as the trucks were backing into the paver, you can see that it's starting to rut. And if we don't have items in our bid to cover the cost to stabilize this before we continue paving, we're going to have to ask the contractor to give us a price at that time. It's better to get those prices when they're trying to get the work and they're hungry for work and their prices are better. The photograph on the right, this was a concrete parking lot. Once we stripped the concrete off, we found there was no stone base underneath this. Another good point for doing geotech. So we had items for undercutting. We were able to remove that dirt, create a proper stone base, and we had those prices ahead of time. So these contingency items will prevent cost creep on your project.
They can also, the contingency items can help to keep the project on schedule, because you don't necessarily have to stop the project to get a change order if you have some of the contingency items built in.
Good point. Also, when you're doing a design, we recommend that you use unit pricing rather than lump sum pricing. Basically, unit pricing is the contractor submits a price for every item of work they're doing, and then for every unit they do, for example, milling in this example, there's 510 square yards. They know for every square yard they mill, they're going to get paid the unit price that they bid. And so this eliminates any unknowns. The contractor doesn't have to put in any kind of fluff to make sure he's covered. He knows he's going to get paid for what he does, and the owner knows that they're only going to pay for what gets completed. So this is what we recommend, and this is what you should use when you do your design.
So Troy, one thing with unit price bidding that I like to bring up is there are clients we've worked with who have bidding systems or different bidding tools, and those tools are designed to bid something on a lump sum basis. So we have found, we've had to get creative with some of those clients, but we have found that while maybe their systems only allow a lump sum bid, that we could still request the contractor to submit the unit prices that total up to that lump sum bid. And we just recently did this with a client in the last couple of months, And we actually were able to find that because they changed from lump sum bidding to unit price bidding, we were able to save them $20,000 at the closeout of the project because they weren't paying for items that hadn't been installed or were not needed. So that we definitely have to get creative, but there are some workarounds even if a system is set up to only do lump sum bidding.
Right, in a lump sum bid situation, those could be things that the contractor added to cover himself, and if they don't get done, that's extra money the client's paying that they wouldn't have to pay if they had unit prices. So that's a great point. Okay, with proper design, we're going to throw in one of our poll questions here. And the question is, after developing or receiving a detailed set of plans and specifications, when is the ideal time to bid your project? Ben?
Thanks, Troy. And the answers to that question are winter, spring, summer, and fall. And as we give people time to answer that poll question, Elise, I'm going to throw a question to you. What is one thing that you have learned during the COVID-19 event that will impact how you work with clients moving forward?
Oh goodness, Ben, I've learned more than one thing, but I think probably the one thing I've learned the most is technology, whether it's learning new technology to use or just learning how to utilize technology to stay connected. Certainly would love the opportunity to meet with clients face to face, even with some of our team members, but because we can't do that today, have figured out how to make technology the next best thing and to really stay connected with our clients and customers during this time, especially in the days of using cameras more. And so I would say technology is probably one of the things I've learned the most over the last 8 to 12 weeks.
Thanks, Elise. And it looks like the votes have slowed down, so I am going to go ahead and close the poll. And the results to after developing or receiving a detailed set of plans and specifications, when is the ideal time to bid your project? 53% voted winter, 26% voted spring, 3% voted summer, and 18% voted fall.
Thanks, Ben. In my opinion, the best time that you can bid your projects are late fall, early spring. So there's kind of two answers that are correct here. The best time to bid is obviously after the contractors have completed all their summer projects. Things are slowing down for them. They've got time to analyze the bids more closely, talk to more subcontractors, come up with more creative ways to do the project, find closer or cheaper fill sites to get rid of material. So we're going to get better pricing. They're also trying to fill their schedule for the following summer. So we definitely want to be bidding in late winter, early spring. Along with that, we want to make sure we have our plans and specs ready to go to the contractors at that time. So we better be a year ahead on our plans and specs for our construction projects if we can do that. Also, by bidding early, we'll be first on the list when the plants open, the concrete and asphalt plants, so that your project will be built in the middle of summer when it's nice and warm, which is the best time to lay asphalt pavement, and you won't be doing your paving in October, November when snowballs are hitting you in the back. Also, getting a little jump on your bidding and having these projects lined up is you can get the permitting processes done, and that sometimes can take a lot of time to go through a city if you're adding a new roadway or just repaving a parking lot. Sometimes a lot of these municipalities require reviews, and that can take some time. So we don't want to delay our start time in the first part of June. Okay, so now we've come up with a plan. We have detailed plans and specs for a proper design. So how the third strategy, make sure we're getting what we paid for. How do we do that? Well, we do that through project oversight and inspection. Whatever design we come up with or you come up with is worthless if your contractor does not build it per the plans and specs. So project oversight inspection assures that that design is followed. In this particular slide on the left, this was a project I was on several years ago, and you can see as we were excavating here, we found that the stone base went from probably what was designed, and then all of a sudden we're getting half or less than half of that stone being placed underneath that pavement. Well, I like to think that maybe this was just sloppiness, that the contractor didn't remove quite enough dirt and it wasn't intentional, but I guarantee that that pavement where that stone isn't to specification is going to fail prematurely. So we want to make sure that you have full-time inspection, making sure that these projects are being built properly. The other thing project oversight and inspection will do is make sure that the materials being delivered match the specification. All materials, almost all materials that are delivered to the site will have some kind of tag or load ticket involved, so that you can look at that ticket when that material comes, make sure it meets the specification, and either okay it to be installed or reject it so the contractor can get the right material. Good project management or oversight also will make sure that the contractors has proper traffic control and safety in place. If in a retail situation, if a customer would get through, or even in any situation with one of your workers got into the work zone by accident and got hurt, it could be quite a litigation issue. So we definitely want to make sure that barricading is in place and keeping people out of our work zone. And it can also eliminate people walking through your new concrete.
Hope that wasn't your project, Troy.
No, that was one of ours, but it was not mine. As part of your inspection, make sure you're getting daily reports. Daily reports should document the weather for that day. It should document all work items that are being done, very detailed, and should include photographs of those items as they're being done. This can be very important information. This information generally becomes part of the bidding documents, and going in the future can be very helpful when you're trying to find out why a pavement is failing or something went wrong on a project. Also, besides making sure we're getting the right products delivered to the site and installed, we want to do quality control, or you want to do quality control. The photo on the left shows a technician doing nuclear testing of the asphalt. This is to make sure the asphalt is compacted correctly. Also, you should take samples of materials delivered to the site, have those tested to make sure that they were mixed properly with the right ingredients, the right percentages of either concrete or asphalt. Both can be tested to make sure that they meet the specifications as well. And if they don't, they should be rejected and sent off the job site until the right material comes on site. Another advantage to having full-time inspection is you can make improvements and cost savings during construction. This is an example of that. This is an outer ring road at a shopping mall. Once it was excavated, our inspector found that it was very wet the next day when they got there, and they found that water was bubbling up from underneath the ground. They determined that it was not a leak in any water pipes. They wanted to make sure that it wasn't irrigation or something that was leaking. Turns out it was a natural spring. So at that time, we were able to get an under drain installed below the pavement system that carried the water to a catch basin and into a storm drain system, so that now that subgrade will stay dry, and that pavement system will stay dry and will perform as expected and last as long as expected. So having somebody there to make these kind of decisions and catch this stuff is very important. It'll save you money, and in the long run, with your pavements lasting longer. The other thing with if you have full-time inspection is cost control. Going back to unit price bidding, with full-time inspection, you'll know exactly what is being done each day, and those quantities can be tracked. So at any point in the project, you'll know exactly what it's costing. If you're on track to stay under budget, make sure you're not going over budget. And also, if it looks like you're under budget, if you want to expand the project, do a little more paving, we can quickly determine if the money's available and how much area we can do by using unit pricing. Or if it looks like the project's going over because of some unforeseen things, like having to install that under drain, we can maybe cut the project back a little bit, do 50 feet less roadway, stay in budget. But using this kind of information in a spreadsheet will help you make sure that your project stays on track as far as budgeting.
So Troy, one of the things you talked about before in the bidding phase was the contingency items. And so it's interesting here in this example, both the utility repair allowance and then also the stone undercut, both of those are what we would consider contingency items. So in this particular case, it looks like the client is not spending $30,000 that was built into the bid because there was not a need for those items during the project scope. So it definitely is also saving them money, but did allow you to build in those contingency items in case you needed them.
That's right. It's a great system. And in that case, you would take that extra contingency money, maybe do some maintenance on another part of your lot or do some more work. If you find that full-time observation or inspection is not in your budget, you can certainly do what we call a post-construction audit. How a post-construction audit works is once the project is done, have somebody come in, inspect the pavement, make sure everything was done per the plans and specs, everything was installed, nothing was missed. Also, that person can measure the pavements that were placed, get the actual in-place measurements, square yards, and then collect the load tickets from the contractor. And what we can do is determine if an area was supposed to get 3 inches of asphalt, that will take a certain amount of material. And by using the load tickets that the contractor supplies, we can determine whether the full thickness of asphalt was placed on that pavement area or if it was deficient. Generally, they're within a couple percent, but every once in a while we get some that the pavement, the amount of material does not match what was required for the pavement in that area for the thickness. In that case, we've recommended that you do cores of the pavement then. I hate to punch holes in a brand new pavement, but when you run into a situation that can include a lot of money, punch cores to verify that information. And then we can recommend either leave the pavement in place and get a credit back to the client, have the contractor rip that pavement out and put it back in properly, which a lot of our clients don't want to do because they've already had this parking lot shut down. And although a deduct or credit sounds like a really good idea, you're still getting a deficient pavement. It's not built like it should be. It's not going to last as long as it should. So in the long run, I feel it really costs money. So when you think about it, the cost of full-time inspection pays for itself in quality and in longevity of the project. So in summary, the 3 strategies for properly maintaining your pavements are: know what you have a plan, develop proper designs so you're spending your money wisely, and thirdly, utilize full-time construction management to make sure you're getting what you paid for. Thanks.
All right, well, Ben, that's all we have to share today. So do you want to let us know if any questions have come in, if there's anything that Troy and I can address here while we've got some additional time?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a few, and actually the first one's more of a comment than a question. And they said that on poll question number 3, you said to bid it in early spring. It sounds like this person lives in a northern climate, and they said that doesn't exist for them. It just goes long winter, a few months of summer, and back to winter.
We can relate. Being in Wisconsin, absolutely. We can relate to that.
So the first real question is actually regards to the first poll question. And they say, is the $45 a yard for asphalt and $110 a yard for concrete an estimate for the materials, or is that the all-in cost for the install?
That would be the all-in cost for, it's not really an installation price, it's an asset value, because obviously in that it would be if you were building a brand new parking lot from scratch. So if you had a parking lot that was didn't have a good base, had water, you had to totally rip it out and redo it. Those are what those numbers represent. They were an asset value number, not a reconstruction number, because a lot of times if your stone base is in good condition, all you have to do is remove the existing asphalt, make some changes, maybe thicken up the asphalt, remove the concrete, thicken up the concrete. So those are replacement cost values. So I guess that answers the question. Those are asset values, not necessarily what your construction costs are going to be.
Thanks, Troy. And this next question looks like they're referencing back a few slides when you had a photo of footprints across the wet concrete. And they're just wondering who would normally be responsible for correcting footprints in wet concrete.
That would always go on the contractor. I think that's obviously a given. If they're not protecting their work, the contractor is responsible for that. We do have language in our specs, which you should have in yours, saying that the contractor has to protect that pavement until it fully cures, which is hard to do. We don't see a lot of footprints. Normally it's, even if you fully barricade it, people will find sticks or something and generally write their names in it. So, but when you have your plans and specs done, make sure that it includes verbiage that they have to protect that from any kind of damage until it cures.
All right, thank you. This next question is, the average life of asphalt without maintenance is plus or minus 12 years. And they want to know kind of a comparison between Wisconsin and Alabama. So I guess more northern versus southern climates.
Yeah, in general, pavements in warmer climates that don't have freeze-thaw cycles, those pavements do last longer. We have projects in California that we don't see the deterioration. The deterioration curve is a lot longer. It's funny, northern climates that freeze and stay frozen, we see less damage every year than moderate climates, say like the Reno, Nevada area, where they have a lot more freeze-thaw cycles. It can be frozen one day and thawed the next day throughout the whole winter. They take a lot more beating than our pavements that get frozen here. And because the base is frozen and hard, we don't get that kind of deterioration. So I would say, yeah, the down south or warmer climates, down south, out west, you're going to get a lot more life out of your asphalt pavements.
And I would add to that too, Ben, in the new tool that we have created in-house, we do take into account for a client specific, if we were putting something together, where they're located, and then we do adjust pricing based on what type of pavements they have. So it's not just the number we shared today was a very high level, kind of just general number. But when we do put these together for client specifics, we would dig in a little bit deeper and take into account the different usages throughout the site with the pavement asset value as well.
Perfect. The next question, kind of going into that, the chart you were sharing, how often would you recommend re-inspecting your site and reprioritizing the rehab schedule? Elise, do you want to take that one?
Sure, that's a great question. We typically would recommend reassessing or reevaluating the site every 2 to 3 years is our general rule of thumb. We do, based on your portfolio size, it might need to be every 5 years, depending on how many sites and facilities you have. But the clients that we typically work with, it's anywhere between every 2 to 5 years. And we wouldn't recommend any longer than 5 years, because you certainly want to make sure that you're hitting those pavements that are in that good or fair condition before they reach the point of the next level where maybe you missed that window and now you're not going to get that life expectancy. So I would say 2 to 3 years is what we would recommend.
That's a good point, Elise. You want to do the right method at the right time. You don't want to miss that window to get those overlays done where they turn into reconstructions, because as Elise had pointed out, they are much more costly to reconstruct a parking lot than to do an overlay and extend the life of that pavement.
And a question just came in on that, and they're wondering what the difference is between an overlay and a structural overlay.
Okay, I should have said structural overlay, because that's all we do here at Benchmark or recommend. A regular overlay, the contractor will come in and just place asphalt over the existing pavement without much prep. I've seen it where they won't even mill butt joints where they match into existing pavements. They won't raise catch basins or manholes. They dive down into those. That's an overlay. A structural overlay raises the catch basins, raises the manholes to the new elevation. So we're getting a consistent thickness of an overlay. Milling butt joints where we match existing pavements. doing base patching of any alligator areas, improving the pavement we're overlaying actually before we put that structural overlay. So it's adding strength to the pavement system so that we get that additional life. That's the difference between a structural overlay and just an overlay.
Perfect, thank you. Kind of changing directions, this question's asking, are there any disadvantages to unit price bidding?
That's a good question. Troy, do you want to take that one?
The one disadvantage I can think of is contractors, what I call unbalancing their bids. And I'll admit that we used to do this at some of the firms I used to work at. You'll put more of the money into the lump sum items like mobilization or general conditions because you can bill for those right away, right when the project starts. And then you would lower your asphalt prices so that you take some of that money out of your asphalt and unbalance it into your lump sums. Fortunately, we can analyze by using unit prices, we can analyze the bids very closely and we can pick up if that's happening. And it gives you an opportunity to give that contractor a call and say, hey, I noticed your mobilization item is twice what everybody else bid. Can you explain that? So we can call contractors on that, but I would say that's about the only negative I can think of, and the positives far outweigh that.
And I would say true, too, Troy, that while that could be a disadvantage, because you have unit prices, you can easily see if that's happening. So I think to your point, you know, you should question that type of stuff when you're reviewing bids, even if it's the low bid. If they have one item that's really out of whack, you know, give them a call and ask them, why is this item so different? You are, like Troy said, 2 or 3 times higher than the other contractors in this area, because maybe they didn't understand something. And we've also seen that with unit price bidding when someone has a really low price on something, calling them to confirm, do you fully understand the extent of this work? Where if they were just giving us a lump sum bid, we wouldn't be able to dive into each of those items and fully understand if they do understand the intent of the specifications and design.
Right. The last thing we want to do is trap a contractor with a false bid. We want to be fair to the contractors as much as you do to the owners. And if they made a legitimate mistake, you want to let them correct that, and it probably will knock them out of the low bid position. But it's a lot easier than fighting over it after you've awarded a contract.
Perfect. And we have one more question, unless anybody else wants to submit something. And this one's directed to you, Troy. When you were on the contracting side of the industry, what did you see as the biggest challenge as the contractor?
I would say my biggest challenge as a contractor was asking for change orders and extras. I hated doing that. You could try to put contingencies into your bids, but it generally would make you too high a bidder and you'd lose the bid. And that was always the toughest thing, was having to go to a customer because there wasn't anything in the bid to take care of soft subgrade, and that was always a difficult thing to have to deal with because they only budgeted so much money for the project, and now you've got an extra to make sure you're giving them a quality pavement. So I never liked paving over soft grade, and I wouldn't do it. But so that was always a really tough thing, is to try to negotiate those change orders and make them understand that it wasn't cheating them.
Very good. And that looks like that's the end of our questions.
All right. Well, we definitely appreciate everybody joining us today for the webinar. We hope that you enjoyed this educational session, and certainly Troy and I's contact information is on the screen here. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And we hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.